Hello, my friends, and happy Thursday. This is my first video back from Tucson. Well, not the first video, but the first project video. And this is the project that you guys asked for. This is the netted cabochon, which I have been doing this technique for a schmillion years now. And I love it. It's literally my favorite wire wrapping technique. And you know, it's kind of funny because I've been doing this for such a long time, but I'm still discovering little nuances about this technique. And I have featured it in multiple books, multiple articles. Every time there's a little bit of a different take on it. And I love using this to wrap cabochons because this is a technique that is applicable to any shaped stone, any size stone. Well, as long as it's a cabochon or at least somewhat flat. You can even use beach stones with this technique. And the other reason I love it is because it does not cover the cabochon itself. So let me show you some of my samples, and I do have a lot of samples this time, and that is because I have sort of outdone myself just a little bit, even if I do say so myself. We have 4 different colorways, and each kit has 3 different cabochons. So right now you are looking at Metalicious, which of course contains the titanium coated, everything is titanium coated in Metalicious, of course. There's a very light titanium coating on this creamy white cabochon. And then we have a very metallic chrome finish on this one, and they're all druzy, by the way. That's why they're so very, very sparkly. And then we have the kind of a purpley blue with some nuances of pink, and this is all the same technique.
Fonda says, good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday.
Hi, Fonda. Happy Thursday to you, my friend.
Jolene says hello.
Hello, Jolene.
Trudy says hello.
Hello, Trudy.
Yolanda says hello. Look at all those goodies.
Oh, thank you so much, Yolanda, and hello.
Fonda says I ordered this set already.
Woohoo! Which one? The Southwest or the Metalicious?
I think it's the Metalicious.
Cool! Yay! I know you will enjoy this.
Patricia says good morning. I'm sorry, good evening, everyone. That was my mistake.
Well, it's morning somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
And hi, Patricia. Okay, ladies, so as I mentioned, I have 4 different colorways. So we have the Metalicious. This is Southwest. Does it look like Southwest? We have in the Southwest, we have red jasper. And of course, Southwest, we have to have turquoise. And we have Bumblebee. This one looks like this kind of desert road. They're not all going to look like a desert road. Some of them are going to be a little bit more of a solid color, like this piece that I'm going to demo on today. But, well, actually, this is probably a good time for me to mention that these are all natural stones. So they're going to be slight variations in color and whatever patterns you see on the cabochons. In fact, this is such a good example. So the sizes are going to be either identical or very, very similar, but the patterns you will see on the stone will vary. And that, of course, is because nature loves to create unique masterpieces. So we are very privileged to make the frame around her masterpieces. So there we go. So everything is going to be just a little bit unique. as far as what you see on the surface of the stone. And size-wise, it'll be very, very similar.
Allie says, hi, so glad to see you guys online. I've been looking forward to one of your tutorials for quite some time.
Oh, hi, Ellie, and thank you so much. I'm so glad you've been looking forward to it. You know, it always makes me so happy when people say that, because sometimes I'm like, well, I've shown nearly all my tricks. Of course, I do keep coming up with some new tricks, but this one is actually one of my oldest techniques that I really enjoy doing. So thank you so much, Allie.
Kimar says hello.
Hi, Kim.
Melanie says hello.
Hello, Melanie.
Kathy K says, hi, everyone. Thank you for the beautiful stone leaves, the Tucson treasures in your store today. Just lovely.
Oh, thank you so much, Kathy. It was so wonderful to see you today, and I'm so glad you enjoyed the leaves. And for the rest, yes, I will at some point feature the leaves. They're amazing. They're these hand-carved leaves, which some are made out of a very rich red jasper, and some are jade, and they're just amazing. And I will make it a point to feature them in one of the upcoming videos.
Althea says, good evening, jewelry friends. Major problems with Facebook tonight.
Hi, Althea. I'm sorry you're having issues with Facebook.
Karen says, good evening. Glad I made it.
Hi, Karen. Yay, you made it. I made it too. Woohoo. Okay, my friends. So, this is the Southwest, and it's the bumblebee and turquoise and red jasper. And then we have a grouping called shimmer, and I think you can tell that this is the very shimmery group of gemstones. One of them actually being a Mabe pearl, very shimmery, very pearlescent. Then we have everybody's favorite, and well, especially my favorite, labradorite and pyrite. Very, very unusual. This is a gorgeous pyrite piece, by the way, and they're all beautiful. They're kind of satiny on top. They're just lovely. And finally, we have texture, and you can see that these are very visually textured. They're not textured as far as actually touching them. They're very smooth. They're very high polished. But there's a lot of very interesting visual texture here. And so what we have here is a fossil jasper. So if you know what crinoids are, they're these fascinating prehistoric sort of half critter, half plant kind of thing. And of course, they do not exist anymore. But we do find them in the fossil form, and this is the pattern that we get from crinoids. If you don't know what crinoids are, please look them up. They're so cool. It's my favorite fossil, and they look like a flower. They really look like a flower. They're so beautiful. And so we have the crinoid, we have ocean jasper, and we have the beautiful chevron amethyst. And so these are the 4 different colorways that I have for you today as far as the kits. So let's start exploring the technique. So it's a very simple technique. I have actually been doing this technique in one form or another since I was 8 years old. At that time, I wasn't actually making jewelry, but I was using the same technique to make baskets and flowers even. And it's very simple. Once you learn it, I'm actually going to remove a few of these so that I have a little room to work on. I was trying to kind of scrunch everything up towards the front, And then I realized that I can't keep them all in front of me. So we'll remove 2 of the sets and we'll keep 2. So let me tell you a little bit about this technique. And also, before I tell you, I'm also going to show you one of my books. So this is Wire Jewelry, Beaded and Beautiful. And of course, I love working with wire and metals in general. And I included this technique in this specific book. Actually, I should probably go to the previous page so that I can show you. So yeah, so this is the same exact technique. And if you have this book, you can use this in addition to the directions that I give you today. And here's a bit of a disclaimer. As we grow, as we explore different techniques, we always find, just slightly better, slightly different ways to do things. So as I demo today, I may not do exactly the same things that I did in the book. However, it doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make me wrong today. It doesn't make the book wrong. It just means that there are different ways to handle the same thing. So anyway, having said that, if you do have the book, it may be helpful to look at the pictures, to refer to the directions if you find yourself in need of that. Otherwise, this video should really be sufficient. And if you're interested in getting the book, we do have it in our Etsy shop. We also have it on our website. And of course, we have it in our brick and mortar store. Okay, so now we're actually going to get started. So what we're going to do first is we are going to make a frame. And what I mean by a frame is if you look very closely at the front of each one of these pieces, you will see a slightly heavier wire that is essentially our frame. And on some of the pieces, I have a contrasting color. I don't know if you guys can see this, but the frame is in gold tone, and then the rest, the netting, is in silver tone. And I simply like the look of that. In fact, I'm wearing one of these pieces, of course, and you can see that I made the frame in gold and then the netting is in silver. I do like the mixed metals look. Here's another one where the frame is in gold, the netting is in silver. But in the kit, I included both silver tone wire and gold tone wire in 22 gauge. 22 gauge is the wire that we're going to make the frame in. So when you get your kits, you can decide what makes you happy and just use that wire. And so in the meantime, I'm going to make a frame, and I think for this first demo, I'm just going to use the silver tone. It really doesn't matter. I mean, the tone of the wire is just a personal choice. So I'm cutting a 3-inch piece of wire because my first little demo is going to be making a round frame. And you know, the way I design this kit is so that you can start with something that's a little bit easier and just kind of progress to something that's maybe just a tiny bit more challenging. So I have a little piece of wire, 3 inches, and we are going to make a frame for this lovely turquoise cabochon. And when we create the frame, we want it to be just a little bit smaller than the size of the actual cabochon. And how much smaller? Well, this is not a very large cabochon, so I'm going to say that if the frame sits on top of the cabochon and you can see anywhere between 1 millimeter and 3 millimeters of stone on the outside of the frame, we're doing pretty well. So to make the frame, I am going to use, actually I might just use a Sharpie just to show that you can do the same. I actually have a number of different mandrels. This happens to be a mandrel that I use to make bezels. When I bezel cabochons, I will use this mandrel. So I can use this mandrel, or most of you probably do not have a mandrel, and so I'm just going to use a Sharpie just to show you that you can. And so I'm going to keep in mind that the wire, this is 22 gauge wire. It's half hard. It has a little bit of a spring. So we are going to want to start, I may have grabbed too big of a Sharpie, honestly. So, but you know what, it's okay. We will just wing it. Oh, Tony's handing me a different Sharpie. This is exciting. Okay, cool. So this is probably a really good size for this cabochon. So I could use a number of things. I could use a mandrel. I could use my bail making pliers, or I could just use a Sharpie. So I will just do that just to show you that you don't necessarily have to have special tools for this one. For some projects, you really do need to have special tools. For this one, not so much. So I am making a circle. And so my point in saying that the wire is half hard and it has a little bit of a spring is that if you're starting out with this diameter of whatever you use as a mandrel, your wire frame will get just a little bit larger. I don't know if you can see, but this is just a little larger than my Sharpie, which is good. This is the size I want. So so this is it. This is my frame, and my next step is going to be bending the wire. So as you can see, I overlapped the 2 sides of the wire. The overlap is good. We want that overlap. And I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to bend the wire so that the ends of the wire are perpendicular to the frame. And as you can see, I'm not worrying a whole lot about the ends being exactly the same length. One is a little longer, one is a little shorter. Not a problem. Eventually, I am going to end up cutting this a little bit so that I have maybe somewhere between 8 and 12 millimeters on each side, and that is going to become our bail. So really all we're going to do with these wires that are sticking up like that is just make a little bail, that's all. So I have my frame, but not all cabochons are round. So what if you have a cabochon that is not quite round? So remember, this is the one that's going to be the easiest. And look at this. This is how it fits. You can see that. Can you guys see a little bit of the cabochon on the outside of the frame? Awesome. So that's what we're going to do. And by the way, this cabochon just happened to be on my desk. It's a little bit smaller than what you are getting in the kit. This is more indicative of the size of the cabochon in the kit. Okay, so moving right along, what if you don't have a cabochon that is round? Because each set includes a cabochon that's round, because that's the one that I'm really recommending that you start with. And then as we progress, we can experiment with a teardrop and an oval. And the teardrop and the oval are going to be pretty much the same as far as the strategy. And as far as estimating how much wire you need, so first of all, you have way more than enough wire in your kit. You're not going to run out. So there's no worry with that. But outside of that, how do you estimate wire? Well, the way I do it is I look at the size of the cabochon. You can even just sort of tentatively bend the wire something like this. And this is plenty because, as we know, we only need enough wire on top. These ends need to be just enough to make the loops. So I usually overestimate. And if you were very scientific about this, you would remember about pi. Remember 3.14444, something like that. So it's 3.14, right? And so if we were to do that, especially with a round cabochon, let's say if this is something like an inch, well, an inch times 3, that's 3 inches. However, we want to add a little extra, so maybe I would start with 4.5, 5 inches worth of wire, if that makes sense. So with something a little bit bigger like this, maybe 6, 7 inches, no more than that. Okay, so I have a length of wire and I have a cabochon of exactly that size and shape, and we're going to start shaping it. So the easiest thing is to start right at the bottom, and again, we can use a Sharpie if we so choose. So maybe I will just use the same Sharpie, or maybe the other Sharpie, or if you have a mandrel, use a mandrel. And so I'm just going to start wrapping this wire around the end of my Sharpie. And right there, can you see we're almost there. And so let's actually open this up a little bit. I kind of went a little bit too far. So let's open this up a little bit. This is actually looking pretty good. And so now remember, it has to be just a little bit smaller. And actually, if you wanted to mark your wire with a Sharpie, the Sharpie is not just a wrapping tool, you know. You can actually mark something with it as well. So maybe we'll just mark it right here. And then, so we're not quite done shaping yet. So what I like to do is, if you can kind of look at this, at the top of this wrap, this is not a really sharp V at the top, but rather, oh, you know what, I forgot to grab my round nose pliers, but luckily it's right here. So what I'm going to do is use my round nose pliers right at the mark, and let's see, one side. So this is looking pretty good, but a little too long. That's okay though, because I can go a little further and take up a little bit of the wire if I keep going. Okay, so this is looking good. Now we're just going to do the same thing on the other side so that we can match the curve of the wire. So this technique is going to become really important, especially when you're working on a shape like the oval. And I'm thinking I'm going to skip demonstrating the oval, but if you have any questions, let me know. I can always go back and demonstrate. Okay, so this is looking really good. And now first I'm going to show you the overlap. So it's very important to have this overlap where you create the shape, but then you go past where the shape ends, because it helps you create this curve. If you want a soft curve as opposed to a V, that's important. And it's going to be even more of an exaggerated overlap when you're working on the oval. Okay, so now we're going to grab our chain nose pliers and bend the wire. But as you can see, I have a little bit of that rounded piece. You can see that. And I'm going to do the same on the other side, and hopefully we'll match it. So our shape does not end in a sharp V, and neither does our frame. So you can see how the frame is just ever so slightly smaller than the size of the cabochon.
Kim K says, popping in late. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Kim. So nice to hear from you.
Kim R says, sometimes your tutorials seem more like magic shows, Irina. The way the wire magically fit the teardrop after one wave of your Sharpie elicited a wow from me.
Oh, thank you so much, Kim. But you know what? You just follow my tutorial and you will also do magic. I do not guarantee rabbits pulled out of a hat or anything, but you can do this, I promise. Okay, so I kind of forgot to talk about this, but let's go back. So my two wire ends, they were a little wonky. I don't know if you noticed. And I just went with my flat nose pliers and straightened them like this. In fact, if they're annoying you a little bit, you can make them a little shorter. You can cut some off. Just don't cut too much off. Remember to leave enough so that you can later make some loops. So once we have done something like this, we're just about ready. However, I included in the kit a little piece of black wire. So this is very optional. You don't even have to do this. If you feel pretty confident at this point, you don't have to do anything else. However, if you are, let's say because I'm going to show you how to course correct. So if you're not quite happy with the shape of your bezel, okay, this is what we can do. We can use our temporary wire and just bind the two sides together. And I'm being sloppy because I don't really care. This is not my real wire that I'll be using. So let's say, for example, did you see what I just did? I purposely just kind of distorted my bezel. Okay, let's say your bezel is a little wonky, you're not sure what to do. No worries, I will show you how to fix it. So I'm just binding with my temporary wire, and we're going to make this rounded again. And we can make it wider, we can make it narrower, we can really make it fit the shape and size of the cabochon. So how do we course correct? So your flat nose pliers are magical. All you have to do is just make these little teeny tiny pinches. You see that? And so this side is already so much better. Okay, maybe we don't like this angle because, you know, I just kind of smushed it to show you what happens if you don't quite have the right shape. So we're going to give this a little pinch here, a little pinch there. So wherever you have an angle that you're not really looking for, all you have to do, I know it's not super intuitive because it's a flat nose pliers. It's not a round nose pliers. It's not a mandrel, but you see what I'm doing. I'm just giving it a little pinch here, a little pinch there, and my bezel is really starting to become rounded again and fit the shape of the cabochon. So the other thing too, your hands are the most gentle of tools. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So do you see how I just course corrected the whole thing? And it's rounded again. But let's say you want to make it a little more narrow. We can just squeeze it. There's nothing wrong with using your fingertips to give it a nice little squeeze. Look at how, okay, it moved a little bit at the top, so I'm just fixing that. But so I just gave it a little squeeze. Maybe say you decide, okay, it's too narrow. Let's say I squeeze it a little bit too much and now it doesn't quite fit the stone. No worries, just give it a little pull. So just like you can push it in, you can also pull it out. So that's pretty much all the magic. So just keep working with your fingertips. There's a little bit of like a little very subtle angle. We're going to get rid of that. So I just rounded that out. So really you can do so much just with your flat nose pliers as far as shaping the wire.
Patricia says the video froze up for her.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Patricia.
It looks like it unfroze because she added good tips, so it
Oh,
came
yay.
in a weird order.
Oh, I'm so glad it unfroze. And again, I'm just reminding you guys that sometimes we get your comments in the weirdest order, so just bear with us.
Lori says, good evening, Irina and Tony. Had a hard time finding you tonight.
Hi, Lori. I'm so glad you found us, and we're right here. See, you found us. Okay, so you get the idea. You create the frame, and once you are happy with the shape of your frame, so with anything that's round, it's going to be the simplest thing ever. And if it's not round, you're just going to have to work a little longer at making the frame. But hopefully with what I just showed you, it will be so simple. So once I make my frame and I'm happy with my frame, I no longer need the temporary wire. Okay, so we'll just set that aside, and I'm going to find my actual wire. And for the netting, we're working with 28 gauge wire. And 28 gauge wire is very fine. So if you have never done this before, you're going to want to just maybe cut yourself a piece of wire that is easy to work with. And what I mean by that is not super long. So let's just have a quick chat about this. So it is a bit of a dilemma because nobody likes to add thread and nobody likes to add wire. But, you know, you may need to add wire in this project. Maybe not so much with a piece like this one, like this size. However, with a piece that's a little bit bigger, like this size piece or maybe this size piece, Well, the chances are you may need to add wire. And what I like to do is, if I have to add wire, I like to add it on the back. So with this, if you look very, very closely, you really have to look for it. You can see a little extra wrap, and that is where I added wire. So I will show you a little bit later just exactly how to do it. But please don't start out with a piece that's too long. And so what is too long? I'm going to say probably over 3 feet is definitely too long for the first time. Maybe even 2 feet. If you're not quite sure, again, I'm really suggesting that you start with the smallest cabochon and the roundest one. And each of the sets has a round cabochon, so start with that. And start with something between 2 and 3 feet, no more than that. Because your biggest job in doing this technique is just going to be keeping your wire from tangling. And the longer it is, the more likely it is to tangle. Okay, so having said all that, we straighten these two ends so that they are parallel to one another. So this is going to be our bail. We don't want them to overlap or intersect. That's why I'm just kind of pulling them apart a little bit. And we are going to use our wire to bind them down here at the base of the bail, what's going to be our bail. So we're going to keep our wires from crossing over. And I'm just, did you see I just coiled 3 times around this part of the bail, the part that is just outside of the frame. And if you feel like one side just wants to be a little bit lower than the other side, just give it a little pull with your flat nose pliers. In fact, just pull on both sides so that it's just sitting nice and low. And then we're going to split this into a little V. And when you make this V, that is going to keep your looping wire down at the bottom. Okay, so now that we made that, and so the other thing is, as I coiled, I kept this this little, maybe like 1 inch long tail. I started at about 1 inch long. So I kept it right next to the frame and I coiled upwards. Okay, so now I'm going to take my long side of the wire, and sorry, I have to hold it towards myself. I can't hold it toward the camera, but maybe I'll try a little bit sideways. So I'm holding it like this with the frame towards me. The bail wire becomes my handle, sort of. And I'm going to take the end of my wire, stick it through the frame, going from the back of the frame. Okay, so we will assume that the bottom right here where my finger is, that is the back of the frame. And I'm going through the back of the frame towards the front, towards myself. And then we're going to make a little loop. Let's make a little loop. And when I say a little loop, I'm talking about 4 millimeters, maybe 5 at the most. So do you see my little loop? So now I'm going to take this wire end, and go through the new loop. And we'll just pull it. We can also size the loop as we create it. So let's do this one more time. We take the end of the wire, we go through the back of the loop, so from back to front, through the frame, and now we go through the loop with the end of the wire. So that is how we make the loop. So now we're going to put those two steps together, and instead of making the loop through the frame and then going back through the loop, we're just going to do this all in one motion. So we go through the frame, back to front, and then right away through the loop, front to back. Please let me know, ladies, if this is making sense. So in the meantime, I'll just do this a couple more times. So again, from back to front, through the frame, and then front to back, through the new loop. And then we can size the loop, and as we're sizing the loop, we're going to try to really control the loop. I keep my fingers right here so that I can grab the loop if it's trying to get a little bit too small. And we want these loops to be fairly similar in size. And you know, they're not necessarily going to be the most beautiful loops the first time you do this, although they may be. But one thing I want you guys to know is that as you are making this first row, so whatever the first row looks like, as long as you have loops and they go around, as you make the second row is going to pull on the first row and make everything that much more beautiful. So this is what I have made so far. Do you guys have any questions?
Cheryl says it looks very easy.
Oh, thank you so much, Cheryl. Yay, I'm so glad.
Kim R says makes sense.
Yay, that makes me very happy.
Ellie says it's like stitching, it seems.
You know what? It's a little bit like stitching. But you know, I've taught this class in person like a lot of times, dozens of times. And I can always tell who the stitchers are because as they start getting a little kink in their wire like this, you know what I'm talking about. Instead of just unraveling the kink, they start yanking on the wire like this. And that's how I know they're stitchers. You know, another way I know they're stitchers is when they lick the wire. I'm not making it up, ladies. It happens. So when they start licking the wire, I know for sure they're a stitcher. So, and you know, it doesn't hurt anything. If you lick the wire, I guess, at least dip it in something delicious if you're going to lick it. But no, I'm not really suggesting that you lick it. Really, I was being funny. So the thing is, the biggest thing is you want to just watch for these little kinks when you start seeing that your wire is starting to cross over like this. Instead of pulling on it, just very gently undo it, and it's like it never happened. Okay, so we're going to keep looping, keep making those little loops until we finish that first row. So look at this. Through the magic of Facebook Live, I'm just about done with the first row on this round piece. So this is going to be this guy. Isn't that fun? It's just so bright and so turquoisey. Well, that's because it's turquoise. So I finished the loop, and I'm a righty, so if I'm holding my piece like this, my wire at this point is on the left, and now I am going to make my last loop in the first row. So in the meantime, let me point out this little tail. It's still hanging on. It's still there. We will be getting rid of it pretty soon, but not yet. So in order to finish my first row, I made my last loop right next to the bail wires. And now I'm going to go behind the bail. I'm just going to leave this little wire hang like this. The little tail, just getting it out of the way. So I'm going behind the bail. So this is the back, this is the front. So I'm going to go behind the bail and into the very first loop. So I'm going to try to make a kind of a smaller, tighter loop in this first row to finish the row. And then we are going to start the next row. Okay, so making it kind of tight so that it's in line as much as I can with the first row. So now I'm going to start the second row. When you start the second row, the easiest way to do it is to just go into the same loop for the second time. So in order to finish the first row, I went into the very first loop I made. And then I'm going to go into the same loop for the second time. And so now I'm not going to be going through the frame anymore. We no longer go through the frame. Now we just go into that first loop for the second time. And so here is my first loop of the second row. And you can really see that it's a step up. So I stepped up. Here, let me show it to you like this. So you can see how much taller it is than any loop in the first row. So that's exactly what we want. And we're going to continue doing that. So when I say continue, what I mean is we are going to go into the next loop in the first row and make another loop. So now we are just going into each loop once to form the second row. So we're going into each loop of the first row and making a new loop. So, it's the same exact motion. So now we're going into the next loop from back to front and out the new loop from front to back. And we're not pulling super hard. The loops in the second row are going to be just a little bit larger because, of course, the diameter of the entire piece is increasing. So they have to get a little bit larger, and that is perfectly fine. So one more. So we're going to, again, go from back to front and out the new loop from front to back. Does this make sense? So give me a little feedback just so that I know I can keep going, because we have a few more steps to cover. Okay, so what do you think? Are we ready to go on to the next step? I'm kind of thinking yes, and if you guys have any questions, you just let me know. So here we are, and this is I'm working on this piece, this very bright bumblebee jasper piece, and I have already completed 2 rows. Okay, so I have completed 2 rows. And so depending on how you make your frame, meaning your frame can be a little larger, it can be a little smaller. So for example, when I made the initial frame, I think I had maybe 2 millimeters on the outside, or maybe 3 millimeters. It doesn't matter. And you know, the larger your piece that you're wrapping, the more leeway you have as far as how much room there is on the outside. And if you're wrapping a piece that is not necessarily symmetrical, you can have a little bit more on one side than the other. You can make it a creative choice. Once you master the technique, you can just do so much in terms of interpreting the technique. So anyway, so as you're working on your piece, and every once in a while you put it on the cabochon, you kind of stop and admire it a little bit. And if you decide that it needs to be a little bit changed as far as the shape, you can even still do that. So here, for example, we can give it a little smushy, right? We can make it a little skinnier if we want to. We can make it a little wider if we want to. And so, you can still play with the frame. So now I have 2 rows, and the reason I was talking about how much room you have on the outside of the frame is because it may take you 2 rows, it may take you 3 rows, it may even take you 4 rows, where you take your netting and you start wrapping it around the cabochon. You kind of treat it almost like as a solid piece of metal. You start wrapping around the cabochon and forming the netting to the shape of the cabochon. So can you guys see that I'm really forming the netting? And it's really starting to conform to the shape of my cabochon.
Lori says, I think I would need to do this in person.
Well, come on down, Lori. Every once in a while, I offer this as a class.
Kimar says, I'm with you so far.
Yay! Thank you so much, Kim.
Allie says, making sense.
Woohoo! Yay. It's great when things make sense. I love it. And thank you so much for your confirmation of this making sense, because, it makes sense to me, but I'm really trying to make sense to you guys. Okay, so we just kind of just mush it right onto the cabochon, just like that. So now we're going to start working on our next row. And I'm not necessarily saying, well, it's my 3rd row, but it could be your 4th row or 5th row, who knows? So it's whenever your netting reaches the edge of the cabochon. So now we're going to start decreasing the loops just a little bit. So I am going to step up again, and you step up exactly the same way as we did when we went from the 1st row to the 2nd row. So now we're going from the 2nd row to the 3rd row. And I'm just making another loop to step up, and you can see that this one really protrudes from the whole thing. And so now I'm going to start making slightly smaller loops. And so as I make the smaller loops, the whole thing is going to start tightening a little bit, and I'm going to occasionally try to put the cabochon in, and when it seems that it's no longer it's no longer really easy to take it out, then I'm just going to leave my cabochon right in. So can you guys see these are slightly smaller loops? So I'm just trying to tighten the whole thing, creating a cage around the cabochon. So this is still a very early stage, and we don't have to have the cabochon in. But pretty soon you will see that it's just no longer practical to keep taking it out because you won't be able to get it in there.
Lori says it makes sense, but I feel hands-on would be better for me.
Well, of course, Lori, hands-on is always so much better. So you can see how the netting is starting to almost wrap around the cabochon without the cabochon even being inside the netting. So let's do just a little more. You know, I have used this technique in so many different ways. Sometimes I will use it in a different direction where it's hard to explain, where you're like literally wrapping a bead entirely in a netting. And I have shown that in at least one of my books. Or sometimes I will create a netting and then use an additional frame, and the netting just kind of floats in the frame, or not the netting, but the cabochon that is in the netting is floating in the frame. And I know it's probably a little bit difficult to visualize, but well, take my word, once you master this, this is just so very fun. And a very easy way to change it is just imagine, and again, I featured something like that in one of the books. Sometimes I will have a chain, like a tassel that is hanging down from the back of the cabochon. So it's almost like not even a tassel, but like a fringe. So that's really fun. Okay, so every once in a while, this is just jumping out of my hands.
Allie says, so pretty, it's like you're making wire lace.
Yeah, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of lacy.
Althea says, yep, I'll need practice.
Yes, it's one of those things that you do need to practice a little bit, but you can see that this is very, very easy. Okay, so I think I'm just going to explain the rest, and I do have one more step. Well, no, maybe two more steps to show you. So you're going to keep going and finish this row, and then keep making rows. So let's look at some of the backs of my cabochon. So how many rows do you actually need? Well, I will just tell you, as many as it takes for the cabochon to be very stable in the setting and not move at all. This one I kind of got carried away a little bit, but it's okay. It doesn't matter how many rows you have. So just for fun, let me show you. I cannot move this cabochon. It doesn't even wobble. It doesn't move at all. I don't know if you can see. I'm really trying to move it. Or like, let's say, take this one again. I'm trying to move it, and it's not doing a whole lot of anything. So every once in a while, just check, and if your cabochon is not moving, then it's a good time to stop.
Yolanda says, very pretty.
Oh, thank you so much, Yolanda. And you know, before we finish today, I'd like to come back and just talk a little bit about the frame again. So, you know, just so that we can explore maybe this shape. So, so you're going to be making more rows, and just, you know, until you are satisfied that your cabochon is no longer moving. So once you have done that, what do we do with this wire end? And this actually takes care of adding wire as well. This is exactly how we're going to be adding wire, as well as finishing a piece of wire. So I like to actually cut off most of the wire and just work with a short little end once I know that I no longer need it. And this is what the piece looks like. This is not one of the pieces from the kits. It's just something that I'm making for myself. And I'm going to show you on this. I started it in one of the last classes, never finished it, so this is a good time to finish it. So what I'll do is I will take this little wire and simply, and you know, if it's easier for you to do this just with your fingers, that's okay too. So I'm coiling the wire a couple of times around one of the loops. So once I have coiled it, I'm going to use my cutter and cut off, leaving just enough. I don't know if you guys can see, there's like this little burr that I left, a little teeny tail, literally 1 millimeter. And now I will take my chain nose and push that little tiny tail so that you see how my chain nose is perpendicular to the stone. It means that the little tail is poking toward the stone and not toward me, the wearer, because that would be not a fun thing to wear.
Kim K says, beautiful.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Lori says, I really love this design.
Oh, thank you so much, Lori. So I made a couple of little coils. I don't know if you can see the little coils. It's very tiny. And the tail is sticking towards the cabochon. There's really not a whole lot of tail there. So if I were still working on my piece and I needed to add wire, no worries. We'll just pretend for right now. I would just simply put my wire in there. So this would be the new wire. And again, make a couple of coils in the new wire, with the new wire, and continue like nothing ever happened. It's so tiny, it's so fine. It is so incredibly difficult to see. Like right there, I've added wire, and if I hadn't told you, you probably would not even know it. So that is how you add wire, and that is how you and your wire. Okay, and now we just have one very important thing. We need to be able to wear this piece, and I can show it on this one. We're going to make the bail. So it doesn't matter if you make the bail after. I usually make the bail after I am done with the rest of the piece. I don't know, I just do it that way. I think maybe because it makes me a little bit happier when I have the cabochon in, so that I have a little bit more to hold on to. It's a lot easier to hold on to it once you have the cabochon in. But we don't quite have the cabochon in just yet. And I'm still going to show you how to make the bail with our two little rabbit ears. And so what I'll do is I'm keeping the cabochon in there because it's helping me hold on to the piece. So this is what I do. I use my flat nose pliers and I bend the two bail wires toward the front, so toward the side with the cabochon or towards myself. And I will bring these together a little bit more, or I can do that later as well. And then I might just cut these down a little bit. And if you're not quite sure, don't cut them too short because you can't add it back. But you can take some more off. So I have just enough for my bail. So how much is enough? Well, that's up to you. If you want little tiny loops, I would say 8 millimeters. If you want slightly bigger loops, about 12 millimeters. All of mine are somewhere in that neighborhood. So then this part you really need to have, I guess you can do it with round nose, but it can be a little bit frustrating to do this with the round nose pliers. I really prefer doing this with the small bail making pliers. And that is because the diameter of each side of the bail making pliers is the same. So you don't have to worry about, do I hold it here? Do I hold it in the exact same spot? Because it's the same diameter. So we are just going to grab the one little wire, and as you know, or maybe you don't, maybe it's new, the diameter of each jaw is slightly different. So make sure that you are using the same size on both loops. So I purposely cut the wire just a little bit long to show you what happens if it's just a little bit too long. If it's too long, the end will stick out just slightly past the front of the loop. And no worries, we are just going to cut it off. So if you cut it just right, you don't have to do this, but I did it so that you're not, and you know what, I have to open this up just a little bit in order to get to the wire end. But if you haven't done this a whole lot, maybe it's a little bit nerve-wracking to try to estimate. And so you don't have to estimate it exactly. Just estimate it so it's a little bit on the longer side. And then you can always cut off a little bit of each loop. And as you can see, I have just closed them. I wiggled them closed just like a jump ring. And now I'm giving them a nice little squeeze. And there it is. So obviously I still have netting that I need to work on, but we can really see what our pendant is going to look like at this point. What do you think? So what do you think? Is this simple? Do you guys have any questions? Is there anything else I can tell you or show you to make this easier? I don't know. Let me know, please. So in the meantime, this is it. This is how you make a wire netted cabochon pendant. And I am going to put all my fun little pieces right here. And maybe we will organize them into sets again. And then I will give you a little preview of what is coming up this week and next week.
Trudy says awesome, and Kim R says amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, ladies.
Lori says this is stunning, Irina.
Thank you so much, Lori.
Katie S says late. We'll watch the replay.
Hi, Katie. So nice to hear from you. And yeah, please do. As you know, all of my videos are available. We archive them all, and you can watch them whenever you want.
Althea says love it. Thanks for showing us.
Thank you so much, Althea. It is my pleasure. I love doing this. I love that you guys want to watch me do this. I love sharing it.
Patricia says I love this demo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Patricia.
Lori says, what is the sparkly piece, please?
The sparkly piece. Okay, so in the front we have a little group, and I'm calling this little group Metallicious because these are drusies that are titanium coated. So druzy, of course, is a bit sparkly on its own. It's where we have this crystal structure that comprises an entire texture of tiny, tiny little crystals. So the sparklies that you're seeing are the teeny tiny natural crystals. However, this is not entirely natural since it is titanium coated over the natural druzy. So let's see, we can, oh yeah, you can see the natural stone. This is what the natural stone looks like. It's kind of white, kind of grayish white, which is why they decided to coat it. So sometimes when it's not exciting enough on its own, they will coat it with titanium. And titanium, it's done in a vacuum chamber, and it's a permanent bond. It does not wear off. It doesn't really do much of anything. It just stays exactly the way it is.
Karen says, I'll have to watch the replay. You keep freezing. We're having strong winds this evening.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, I was freezing earlier, but now it's a lot warmer in this room.
Lori
It's
says,
a joke.
Lori says, oh, okay, it's so sparkly. I would not have thought it was druzy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, thank you for asking, Lori.
She says, thank you, Irina.
My pleasure.
Kim K says, I love this technique. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much, Kim. So then we have the texture set, then we have the shimmer set, and of course the Southwest. And speaking of the Southwest, this really, really goes with my Southwest set. Check this out. So this, you guys, this is luxury. When you look up luxury in the dictionary, it's this stuff, right? It's the turquoise and spiny oyster, and it is so gorgeous. I can't even tell you how incredibly beautiful this is. So this is actually a preview for my video tomorrow, and I'll show you one of my awesome carved flowers. This is also spiny oyster. So tomorrow, as you know, we just came back from Tucson, beautiful warm Tucson, where we spent a week and a half looking for the most exciting treasures ever. And yes, we brought them back. Well, actually, we shipped them. You may have seen that pile of boxes. We posted a picture of our boxes. They're starting to come in. A lot of them are already here. We're unpacking them. It's really amazing to rediscover them. And so tomorrow, February 14th, yes, on Valentine's Day at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time on the Eclectica Beads Facebook page, please join me for a special Tucson Treasures shopping event. So this is where we're going to be perusing a lot of turquoise and spiny, but wait, turquoise and spiny together is even more exciting. I also have wampum, and we have some sterling pendants with spiny and turquoise. So this is going to be incredibly exciting. Tomorrow I'm mostly focusing on spiny, turquoise, and wampum. There's also a little bit of something else that was very much a favorite last year. But I will leave that as a surprise. So I will be doing this tomorrow again at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Ellie says the picture of the boxes was awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, Ellie. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. And this is just a small portion. So most people don't understand how much we actually ship back here from Tucson. But it's really lovely. It's really so fun to open those boxes and go through the whole thing again and put it out. And I just really enjoy it. Organizing it, displaying it, all that stuff is super fun. But wait, there's more. So on Monday, February 17th, and I didn't grab a sample of anything because I simply forgot, but if you saw my video from Tucson, and if you didn't, you can still see it. That was the preview of just some really fun things that we shipped home. And some of it is carved labradorite and so much other really exciting stuff. And actually some of it you would not have seen in the video as well. Like coated gemstone, and they're just going to be a lot of surprises. So we're not necessarily adding another video permanently, but we're just going to do some really fun pop-ups So we did last Monday and we're doing this Monday, and we're not even necessarily keeping them on Mondays. So if you're interested in watching these Tucson videos, just follow us on Facebook and you'll see exactly when they are.
Katie says, I started a new job and have to work on Fridays and Saturdays. Darn, we'll miss you tomorrow.
Oh, Katie, well, I'm sorry that you will miss us tomorrow. We'll miss you as well.
Good luck at your new job.
Yes, good luck at your new job. I was hoping that your new job would be here, but I know you live a little bit too far away. So anyway, you can always rewatch. And also, if you're not working on Mondays, you can always I'm not promising that we'll keep them on Mondays, but at least this Monday we do have a video at 4 p.m. CST. This is Monday, February 17th. And again, this is going to be on the Eclectica Beats Facebook page. And this is still Tucson Treasures. We'll have multiple videos of Tucson Treasures.
Kathy S. says, can you combine shipping when you have multiple shows in 1 week?
Yes, as long as they're consecutive shows. You know, like if you want to combine, for example, Friday and Monday, you know, like not necessarily Monday and Friday. I don't know if that makes sense. So Tony's saying
Friday and Monday. Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
Friday
absolutely,
and
that
Monday.
works. Yep.
Yes, but not Monday and then we keep it until next Friday.
Right.
If that makes
We
sense.
don't have the ability to keep things organized.
Yeah,
like that.
we're small, you guys. We're a small business, and we try to keep things simple. You know, this way we don't confuse ourselves and we don't confuse you. So, but yeah, that was a great question. Thank you so much for asking. Yes, we're happy to combine the Friday, Monday, not Monday, Friday. Okay, and then what else are we doing? Oh, yes. So on Thursday, February 20th, I'm going to be making a fun bracelet. And this I'm calling Elemental Boho Bracelet. And it's kind of a fun technique. And so it's combining leather and gemstone, obviously large whole gemstone. And you know what I like about this technique is you have the leather peeking out, adding a little extra to the look. And we have a button as a closure. We've done other bracelets that are sort of this theme, but not ever anything quite like this. And so this is what we're doing on Thursday, February 20th.
Katie says, I would love to work with you, but it's a bit too far to drive.
I know, Katie. I remember you saying that before, which is why I kind of echoed what you said. But yes, it would have been really, really nice to have you here. And who knows, maybe someday or maybe not. Either way, we love to see you and hear from you. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. I hope you are excited about this technique, as am I. I love this technique. And, you know, I really like exploring other techniques, but this has been kind of a constant for me. As I said, I've been doing this technique since I was about 8 years old, so kind of crazy. And anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for your awesome comments and questions. And please join me tomorrow for the Tucson Treasures shopping event. I promise I will not disappoint. We will have a great time, and I will see you there. In the meantime, have a wonderful and creative evening.